Okay, let's dive straight in. We're kicking off today with a stat that genuinely makes you blink. McLaren in F1 2025. I mean, they've won an astonishing 9 out of 12 Grand Prix.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And they've amassed more than double the points of any rival. It's almost, well, unbelievable. It really seems like the fight for the Drivers' Championship is going to be an intra-team battle between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. Welcome, everyone, to The Deep Dive. This is where we love to unpack complex topics, sift through the noise and pull out those really important nuggets of knowledge for you. Today, our mission is pretty clear. We need to understand how McLaren MCL39 has become such a, dominant force this season.
Right.
And maybe even more crucially, we need to figure out what on earth has happened to its once formidable opposition.
Yeah, where do they go?
Exactly. And our deep dive today comes from an in-depth analysis we found in a prominent F1 blog.
And it's not just the driver's title, is it? Like you said, the points lead. I mean, the source underscores that McLaren's lead is so overwhelming that losing the Constructors' Championship truly feels, and they put it like this, almost inconceivable.
Wow. Inconceivable.
Yeah. The cars look, close to unbeatable in race conditions, especially when the drivers can really deliver, when they get everything out of it.
Okay, so the big question on everyone's mind then is, what's their secret weapon? Because in F1, you just don't get this far ahead without something truly special, right?
No, absolutely not. And the analysis really points towards their outstanding ability to manage rear tire temperatures.
Ah, the tires. Again.
It always comes back to the tires, doesn't it? Now, for those maybe less familiar, mastering tire temps in F1 means keeping them in that incredibly narrow optimal window. You need that for maximum grip, consistent speed, throughout the whole race.
Right at that sweet spot.
Exactly. And McLaren has clearly nailed this. It gives them this critical race pace advantage, even if their qualifying times are sometimes, a bit closer to the competition.
Yeah. Quali could be tight, but then the race pace.
Yeah.
They just seem to pull away.
It truly highlights how fine the margins are in modern F1. Performance isn't just about raw horsepower anymore. It's about optimizing every single variable. And tire temperature management, well, it's become this kind of silent, crucial battleground that decides championships.
Okay, so they've got this great handle on the tires, but they haven't just stood still, have they? I mean, they must be developing the car, too.
Oh, absolutely. It's not like they found something in testing and just stuck with it. McLaren has been on a continuous upgrade path all season. In Canada, for instance, they introduced a new front wing and also a tweak to the front suspension geometry.
Right, suspension geometry. So we're talking about, the precise angles and positions of the suspension parts.
Exactly. Tiny changes there can massively affect how the car feels, how it responds. And in this case, the Canadian upgrade was primarily designed to improve feel and feedback for Norris. He'd been struggling a bit with that, apparently.
Oh, interesting. So it was driver-specific.
Yeah, which is quite nuanced. The analysis mentioned Piastri didn't really need it. He was already happier with the car's balance.
Huh. Okay, so driver-specific upgrades. What else?
Well, then in Austria, they brought further tweaks, this time to the front suspension fairings. Those are the aerodynamic covers around the suspension bits.
Gotcha.
And they also adjusted the rear suspension geometry again. Then at Silverstone, the focus shifted a bit. Modifications to the inner fairings of the front wheels and a new rear brake duct inlet. All these are small, but they add up, little aerodynamic gains.
That's a lot of constant evolution, piece by piece.
Yeah.
So what does the blog say about future upgrades? Are they still pushing hard for this season?
Well, it notes that a modified floor, which they actually trialed back at Silverstone, is planned for upcoming races. Probably starting at Spa is the thinking.
Right, the floor is always a big one.
Huge. But the source also points out that there aren't, quote, a huge amount more upgrades coming for 2025.
Oh, why's that?
Because their focus is already shifting significantly towards the 2026 development cycle.
Ah, the big rule change.
Exactly. It just highlights that long-term strategic thinking in F1, doesn't it? You sometimes have to sacrifice immediate gains, or at least slow down the gains, for potential future dominance when the rules reset.
Okay, so McLaren's strategy seems clear. Dominating now, but already looking ahead. But what about the others? The teams we expected to be right there with them. Let's turn to Ferrari. The source calls them the biggest disappointment of 2025.
Yeah, that's pretty strong wording, but you can see why.
It's striking, isn't it? Especially given they were battling McLaren for the Constructors' title just last year, everyone expected them to challenge again.
Absolutely. And Charles Leclerc himself admitted it's been a much tougher first part of the season than expected.
Yeah, I remember reading that.
They've only got one sprint victory, which was Lewis Hamilton back in China, and just 4 Grand Prix podiums between both drivers. That's not Ferrari standard, is it?
Not at all. So what's gone wrong there? What's the technical deep dive say?
Well, the core problem for Ferrari seems pretty technical, yeah. And it traces back to a fundamental design choice they made for this year's car. For 2025, they introduced a shorter gearbox.
Shorter gearbox. Okay, why?
The idea was it allowed them to move the cockpit further rearwards. And that was intended to unlock aerodynamic gains, basically creating more space at the back of the car for aero stuff.
Ah, okay. So classic F1 trade-off. They made a change to gain aero, but it sounds like it's an unexpected side effect.
Exactly. Spot on. The issue is this shorter gearbox design forced them to use a more compact damper.
Right, the damper. The shock absorber, basically.
A very, very high-performance shock absorber that controls the car's vertical movement. And the problem is Ferrari's compact damper apparently isn't powerful enough, or maybe responsive enough, to keep the car's floor, that critical underbody, in the right place at high speed.
Ooh, that sounds bad. So just to make sure I'm following, if the damper isn't strong enough, the floor, it lifts away from the track slightly.
Precisely. Or it doesn't stay consistently in that optimal tiny gap above the track surface.
And that costs them massive downforce, right? Because the modern F1 floor generates so much of the car's grip.
Exactly. It's fundamental. It compromises their ride height, how close the car runs to the ground. And this basically forces Ferrari to run the car higher off the ground than they'd ideally like.
To keep it stable, presumably.
Yeah, to stop the floor stalling or hitting the ground unpredictably. But running higher means sacrificing performance. Big time. The analysis highlights the setup compromises they've had to make because of this. Leclerc apparently opting for an extreme approach, trying to drive around it.
Trying to force it to work.
Yeah, while Hamilton's been struggling specifically with instability in high-speed corners, so the car just isn't giving them the confidence, especially in those fast sections where you need it most.
Wow. That sounds like a really tough engineering problem to fix mid-season. Is there any hope for the Tifosi? Any light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, there are some glimmers. The floor upgrade they introduced for the Austrian Grand Prix did seem to improve their form noticeably, so progress is possible.
Okay, that's something.
And there's talk of a modification to the rear suspension, maybe coming as early as Spa, which specifically aims to make that problematic damper more powerful.
Addressing the core issue.
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
If that works, it could allow them to run a lower ride height and maybe find a significant step in performance. Leclerc himself has sounded quite optimistic about upcoming upgrades helping their speed.
And their team principal, Fred Vasseur, he's still aiming to win races, secure second in the constructors, which, would certainly ease some pressure on him before the big 2026 rules reset.
Definitely. So all this makes Ferrari, as the analysis puts it, potentially McLaren's biggest threat if they can get these fixes right and reemerge as a genuine race-winning force.
That would be quite the turnaround story mid-season, wouldn't it?
It really would. Now, moving on to Red Bull. Their season's been described as pretty disappointing, too. And that was even before the whole management change with Christian Horner out and Laurent Mukis coming in as CEO.
Right, a lot going on there off track, too.
Yeah, and on track, despite being 4th in the constructors currently, Max Verstappen has, more often than not, actually been McLaren's closest rival on pure pace.
He's still dragging performance out of it, then.
Absolutely. But the other drivers, Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda, they've really struggled to get near that level of performance from the car.
So is it the car or the drivers or pets?
Yes.
What's the technical angle here? Because you'd think with Verstappen, if the car was fundamentally good.
Well, that's the interesting part. The blog suggests that despite Verstappen's obvious talent, Red Bull's difficulties are primarily down to the car's limitations. It's just not strong enough, apparently not to Verstappen's liking, even with some recent floor modifications they brought for Austria and Britain.
So what are the limitations specifically?
The analysis points to these long-standing balance problems they've had since, well, maybe mid-2023, actually. Specifically, a tendency towards understeer.
Understeer. So the front end doesn't want to turn in.
Exactly. When the front tires lose grip before the rears, making it hard to get the car pointed into the corner quickly. And this seems coupled with what Verstappen himself described as a disconnected front-to-rear balance. The front and back ends just don't feel like they're working together properly.
That sounds frustrating for a driver.
Hugely. And that persistent understeer, especially in slower, longer corners, seems to be a real Achilles heel for them right now.
Okay, so balance issues, understeer. Any other factors?
Well, here's a really interesting detail from the analysis. Their aging wind tunnel, which is apparently quite sensitive to temperature changes, has been mentioned as a contributing factor.
Really? The wind tunnel itself?
Yeah. It's being replaced for 2026, but the current one might be hindering their development correlation.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It sort of suggests F1 is an infrastructure race just as much as it is a car development one.
Wow. That adds another layer of complexity. So the tools they use to design the car might be part of the problem.
Is a huge factor, yeah.
Yeah.
The precision you need for aerodynamic development is just immense. Even tiny inconsistencies in a wind tunnel, maybe temperature fluctuations, can lead to misleading data and major headaches when the parts hit the track.
Right. Okay, but despite all these car issues, Verstappen's brilliance still comes through sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. You look at the Japanese Grand Prix, he won that from pole with a brilliant one-stop strategy, showcased incredibly low tire degradation that day.
Yeah, that was impressive. And he took that superb pole position at Silverstone, too, although he ended up 5th after spinning at a safety car restart. But the raw pace was there.
Still, the consistency isn't there for a title challenge, it seems. Where is he in the points now?
He's 69 points behind the championship leader, Piastri. And he's even publicly stated he's not even thinking about the championship right now.
Oof, that's a pretty stark admission from Max Verstappen.
It is. And with Horner having previously commented that 90% of the focus is on 2026, well, it certainly implies we won't be seeing a flood of new parts for this year's car.
So the chances of him getting back into the title fight look slim then.
It would take a sensational turnaround, as the source puts it. Seems unlikely at this stage.
Okay. So Ferrari maybe has potential. Red Bull seems focused elsewhere. What about Mercedes? The Silver Arrows.
Right, Mercedes. Their season's been a bit of a roller coaster, hasn't it? Capable of winning from pole at their best, think George Russell in Canada.
Yeah, that was a great drive.
But then, at their worst, they've often been, maybe the 4th best of these top teams. They're locked in a tight battle with Ferrari for 2nd in the constructors, but like the others, there's no real threat to McLaren coming from them overall.
So their performance seems to fluctuate wildly. What's the core issue there? Is it another fundamental design thing?
Well, the Mercedes W16 is apparently quite responsive to driver inputs, which is good, but its fortunes have really waxed and waned with temperature. That seems to be the key.
Temperature sensitive. How so?
The cooler it is, generally, the better the Mercedes performs. Tracks like Montreal, smooth surface, lots of short corners, cooler temps, they went well there. But when it gets warmer, or on tracks that are tougher on the tires, Mercedes really seems to struggle.
Another team battling the tires, but in a different way. More about the ambient temperature affecting them.
Seems like it. Their technical director, James Allison, put it quite succinctly, actually. He said, the championship is basically being won on the basis of who's best at controlling tire temperatures.
Layering again.
Exactly. And Allison even accepts that some of the reasons for Mercedes' issues are, quote, hardwired into the car's architecture.
Hardwired, meaning really difficult, maybe impossible to fix mid-season.
Pretty much. Things that are just fundamental to the chassis design or the suspension layout. It really makes you appreciate the challenge for the engineers trying to fix a problem that's baked into the car's DNA, so to speak.
Yeah, it must be incredibly frustrating. But have they made any progress, despite these hardwired issues?
They have. While those temperature troubles remain, they've worked on other areas. They introduced a modified rear suspension geometry back at Imola, which then reappeared in Canada. It offered more anti-lift, apparently.
Anti-lift. So that helps control the rear ride height under braking, stops the back end lifting up.
Precisely. Helps keep the car stable, keeps the floor working consistently, especially during that heavy braking phase. That's a positive step. And they've also confirmed more improvements are coming for the next couple of races, the doubleheader in Belgium and Hungary.
Okay, so they're still pushing, still trying to find performance.
Definitely. But the overall picture seems clear. While Mercedes can absolutely be a victory threat on their day, especially if the conditions suit them, like lower temperatures.
They're probably not going to be toppling McLaren this year.
That's what the analysis suggests, yeah. They won't be toppling McLaren this year.
So it's fascinating, isn't it? What's really striking is how each of McLaren's main rivals has such a unique, deeply technical reason for their struggles this season.
It really is. You've got Ferrari grappling with that fundamental damper issue, which stemmed all the way back from their gearbox design choice.
Right.
Then Red Bull's got these long-standing balance problems, maybe even linked partly to their wind tunnel infrastructure.
Yeah, the tunnel thing is wild.
And Mercedes battling this inherent sensitivity to tire temperatures that seems baked into the car's architecture. It just underscores the incredible complexity of these machines, doesn't it? Every single detail matters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's try and recap this deep dive then. We've seen this incredible story of McLaren's dominance, really fueled by their superior tire management and that continuous, although maybe now slowing, upgrade path.
Yep, nailing the fundamentals.
And then we've unpacked these really multifaceted reasons behind the struggles of their main opposition. Ferrari's tricky compact damper, Red Bull's persistent understeer and maybe even wind tunnel issues, and Mercedes' temperamental relationship with tire temperatures.
A different story for each team.
And it's also really clear that the strategic shift across the grid towards the massive 2026 rule reset is already happening, and it's influencing how much development teams are putting into this year's car.
Yeah, that 2026 shadow is looming large already.
So maybe the final thought to leave everyone with. What does this deep dive into F1's 2025 season really tell us about modern motorsport? Where these incredibly fine margins in engineering, especially around tires, suspension, basic car architecture, can lead to such, overwhelming supremacy for one team.
That's a great question. And maybe what does it imply for the competition going forward, especially as teams are already, as we've discussed, shifting so much focus and resource towards that huge rules reset in 2026? Are they making the right gamble, potentially sacrificing wins now for a shot at dominance later?
Yeah, lots to think about there. The short-term pain versus long-term gain dilemma. Fascinating stuff.